Today, Cities of Migration presents the webinar, Living Together, City Strategies for Social Inclusion. Today's session is co-hosted by Open Society Foundation's At Home in Europe project. The Living Together collection at Cities of Migration showcases immigrant integration practices that promote social inclusion, participation, and intercultural dialogue. In the next hour, we'll learn about strategic city-led initiatives in Antwerp, Belgium, and in the London borough of Waltham Forest. These are ideas that bring together local government, civil society organizations, and citizens to work together on a stronger and more participatory social cohesion agenda. Social change and shifts in public attitude do not occur overnight, but the process of change can be accelerated when shared interests and common goals come together. The role of the city in overcoming challenges and creating opportunity in the economic, social, political, and cultural sphere is vital. On the front line of change, cities confront society as a whole, they understand its composition, and crucially, they can deploy pragmatic programming when implementing policy. Today, we are delighted to have guests from two European cities, Antwerp and Waltham Forest, London, to talk about some of the strategies undertaken by these local authorities to engage the voice and participation of their citizens. Sharing good ideas with us today are Leen Verbiest, Alderman with the Antwerp City Council, Naima Charquet, Director of the Minderhedenforum in Antwerp, and Claire Whitney, Manager of Community Engagement in Waltham Forest Council, London. For the question and answer session after the presentations, we will also be joined by Councillor Liquat Ali from Waltham Forest City Council. So now I'd like to ask you to join me in welcoming our first presenter, Leen Verbiest.
Hello.
Antwerp, Leen Verbiest, Alderman for Social Policy, Ethnic Diversity and Windows, and Chair of Antwerp's Local Social and Welfare Services, joins us to share insight from the city's leadership on diversity and its partnerships with local community organizations on political and policy issues. Hello, Leen. Welcome to the Learning Exchange. The podium.
Hey, hello. It's my first time that I'm on a web conference, so it's a little bit exciting.
For us too.
Okay, I have a little delay, so I don't hear you quite well, but I think the most important thing to do is that I start with some facts and figures. Yeah? Okay, so in Antwerp we have almost 500,000 inhabitants. That's a lot because we increased by almost 100,000 inhabitants during the last 10 years. And that's one thing to cope with, but the other thing is that also the different ethnic groups are increasing. Let's say 10 years ago we had less than 100 different ethnic groups, and now we have almost doubled. And when you see where do those people come from, it's we have 7 large communities. Among them the Moroccan, Turkish, Eastern Europe, ex-Soviet Union, African, Latin, Asian, and also a large, well-known Jewish group. What has that effect on our daily life? That means that in our primary school, almost one or more than 1/3 of the pupils don't have a mother language that's Dutch. That means they don't speak Dutch at home, and so it gives us rather big challenges in not only in primary school but also in further education, and that has his effect on the unemployment rate in Antwerp. We have a lot of job opportunities, but we see that we have a very large amount of unemployed people, and when you look in this group, you see that it are people with low education, mostly from ethnic minority, 50% handicap, but also a big group of young people. So that means that we as a city and more the OCMW, it's the Antwerp Local Social and Welfare Services, we see a decrease of welfare benefits for inhabitants and also an increase of welfare benefits for newcomers. So we have a lot of challenges. It's not always easy to live with so many different people, but it's not a choice. It's a fact. It's a fact that there are a lot of people from a different ethnic background, and it's also a fact that they all live in Antwerp. So if you ask to us what are they sharing together, it's Antwerp. It's a city where they live at this moment in. So we try to make this as our main target. We also have a slogan for the city, and it said it is saying the city is from everyone. It means you even if you were born in South Africa or in Morocco, you live at this moment in the city of Antwerp, and we are forced to make the best of it, and we are forced to live together. And so if you see what are we doing from out of our city policy, it's we have now in 2012 elections, but that means that we have local policy agreement from 2007 till 2012, and the aim is always an inclusive policy with a focus on broad diversity. And we also have a local diversity program, and it's to organize categorical activities where they are needed. And so we also have, but it's not that interesting for this this public, but we have a whole administration that is focused to that. But what's more important is what are our ambitions. And first is we motivate Antwerp minorities talent. I give you an example. For instance, we will start this year in a couple of weeks with a weekend school, and there we will organize at during weekends for 1.5 to 2 hour sessions for people from and youngsters from a deprived background. And what is the aim? To broaden their view and to broaden the network. So we will begin with a well-known writer who lives in Antwerp, and to have discussions between 10 and 12-year-old youngsters and a well-known author. Afterwards, we go to a local newspaper, and then they can see there how news about Antwerp is made. And that's important because it broadens your vision. It makes that you as a youngster come in contact with jobs you never heard of. So that's how we do this under the ambition motivate Antwerp minorities talent. And the next ambition we have is to empower the feeling of togetherness among the citizens of Antwerp. And so we don't believe in doing everything alone, not as a city government, but we emphasize on working together with what we call the stakeholders, what we call different organizations who are active in Antwerp. And among those organizations, we have a project, and we installed a project about civic integration coaches. And what's the importance of that? That we see that in many non-profit organizations in Antwerp, they have a lot of buddy projects, and they are aimed at coaching newcomers in their integration program. That is very important because as I said a couple of minutes ago, it's we share one thing, and that's Antwerp. And so it's important for newcomers in our city to link them to a volunteer and try together with the volunteers to participate in activities that are organized among the city. And so during the first year they meet once every 2 weeks, and what is very important is we facilitate that, but it's up to them, up to the coach, up to the newcomer to decide which kind of activities they want to do, which kind of museums they want to visit, or other things among that. A third ambition that we have is to help Antwerp minorities to guarantee fundamental rights in their family, because we see people who come to Antwerp don't live always in the most best opportunities. So we have a collaboration with VOOM. It's an organization about emancipation, mostly for women, and we have a project with them for against domestic violence. And it's very important not to do everything as a city yourself, but to see what's living in Antwerp, to see which kind of organizations are there in Antwerp, and also to which kind of problems we have to resolve, and that we always do in collaboration with organizations, and it can be on an Antwerp or on a higher level. But I'm sure that Naima can tell you more about the partnership we have also with the Minderhedenforum, because that's one of our very important partners, because they are the specialists among this field, and as a city you don't have to invent the warm water every while, but you have to establish good cooperations, good partnerships with people who are active on the field. So that's in a nutshell how we try with a lot of small projects, but projects that are feasible on a low level and also visible for people who need it.
That's wonderful. Thank you very much, Lynn, for that introduction. And that the concept that everyone is from Antwerp. We love that. I'd like now to welcome Naima Charquay, who is the director of Minderhedenforum in Antwerp, and Naima is going to tell us more about this partnership with the city of Antwerp and some of the work they're doing now and with an eye to the upcoming local elections. Welcome, Naima. The podium is now yours.
Thank you. Well, I'll immediately start on the very concrete level. What do we do in Antwerp, who we are? And one of the central words in that presentation, as you can see on the slide, is the word change. As the alderman already said in her presentation, we have a changing population in Antwerp, and one of our ambitions is to change also the city and the different stakeholders and the policy in the city towards more equal participation of minorities and towards more respect and understanding. And our focus in working towards these goals is on participation of minority groups themselves, because we believe that is a very crucial part of working on social cohesion. Of course, it's not the only part, but one important ingredient. For a change, I will start maybe with what we could call some transferable lessons, and then afterwards I will go more into detail on our activities. But this is really the core, I think, of what makes Minderhedenforum, Minority Forum, and specifically in Antwerp, so special and often different from what exists in other cities. The first transferable lesson, let's say, is that we are an independent watchdog. So what is very important here is that the ownership of Minderhedenforum is really with the minority groups themselves. We can work independently, which is very different from what we often see city dialogue councils or participation councils, etc. We are an NGO. We do receive some funding from the city, but we can use it in an independent way so that we can really raise the voice of minorities themselves. We give recommendations on city policies, but it doesn't stop there, and that is also very important in this independent position, that with the minorities themselves, once we have a recommendation, we can also do the follow-up and think ourselves like, what can we do to make that this recommendation can be realized in the future? How can we convince other actors in the city to implement this recommendation? How can we go into dialogue with them, maybe also make new recommendations based on this dialogue? What is also very important in this independent position and in this ownership is that we can set our own agenda. The priorities that we treat come from minorities themselves, and they are often not in the field of what is defined by policymakers as integration, but they are often in other fields like education, employment. So we are free to choose priorities and to address the different stakeholders in the city that work on these different domains. We don't have to limit ourselves beforehand to the competence of one or other department. Then a next very important aspect, I think, which is interesting in the way we work, is that we have a national, well, actually a regional office, because in Belgium this is a regional competence, and the Antwerp branch is a local branch of this, let's say, national organization. And it's very interesting to be able to work on these different levels, that we can have an integrated approach, because the people on the local level, when they want to participate on what happens in their daily lives, they will not make a distinction on what is a local competence, what is a regional competence, etc. The things that are relevant, that can be treated on another level, we can take them in our organization to be treated at another level. On the other hand, we have some expertise on the central level that we can use on the local level to work, let's say, in a more qualitative way. And another positive point on that is that participants can grow in the participation process. They can become participants on the local level and grow to a more national level to be more active on other levels, and that's also very interesting for them to learn in different ways and on different levels. So this is, I think, these are really the core aspects what maybe distinguish us from many other participation initiatives. Now, what do we do? What are our activities? I will be very brief with 3 points. We developed an intercultural network, try to grasp the city and raise our voices. An intercultural network, you see here many logos, but we are much more than a group of logos. So let's say that our core group are the more organized, the organizations of minorities themselves. Some of them are federations of different local organizations, but we also have a way to make local organizations participate directly. But the core are the organizations. And then through our activities, we are an open network. We try to involve a much larger group of key persons or just people who are interested in these themes. For example, when we organize trainings on local elections, info sessions, of course, our organizations will be helping us to organize that, but they will also invite many people who are not necessarily active already in organizations. When we organize a debate, it is of course open to the public. So there are, let's say, different levels of participation, and we also try to be very attentive that we remain an open organization where people are welcome. We also try within that, so we are an intercultural network mainly of minorities themselves. That's our core. But from that network, we are really reaching out to other actors in Antwerp. So we are actually using the fact that we are organized to be better able to go into dialogue with other organizations or inhabitants of Antwerp. That's also very important for us because the minorities are really asking to have more intercultural dialogue also with other citizens. Then we focus on policy participation, let's say, participation on policy-making processes. So how do we do that? We make people stronger, try to make people stronger through giving information, through bringing them together, organize trainings. The methodology is based on the idea that better cooperation will give more impact. On the one hand, because we can organize better activities. With one very practical example, we bring organizations together to think like, what do we already do on the education and how can we work better on education from our organization's perspective, with who can we work together, etc. Another example of helping or making us stronger to grasp the city, or trainings on how to go into debates, how to become a spokesman in the media, etc. And that brings me to the last point, raising our voices, and also there it's very important to have trainings. We are now focusing with the local elections on a group of youngsters where we really do a series of trainings on different aspects of let's say, leadership and political awareness. But we also work a lot with local media, and we are in the local elections. We're also working on different levels. I already mentioned, I think, info sessions on what is it about these elections, what are the different parties, what are local competencies. We will also organize interactive discussions with politicians and people with minority backgrounds, so that they can learn themselves what it is about and try to advance their point of view and go into dialogue. So I think these are a bit the core ideas, networking within minorities and with other stakeholders, and empowerment, be stronger, raise our voice, and try to grasp the city, so to say. And that's it for me.
Thank you very much, Naima, for your excellent presentation on Minderhedenforum's integrated approach to community engagement. I'm sure we'll have lots of questions from our audience a little later. We're now going to turn to Waltham Forest, London, and I invite Claire to join us. Claire Whitney is Manager of Community Engagement in Waltham Forest, London. And at a time when councils are facing pretty tough cuts, Waltham Forest Council is finding new and innovative ways to work with local voluntary organizations, minority communities, and youth leaders to accomplish a very ambitious social cohesion agenda. So please welcome Claire. The podium is yours.
Thank you. Thank you. Good afternoon. From Waltham Forest, we're delighted to be taking part in this webinar. I'm going to fly through the first few slides and go quickly to the learning that we can share with you today. Waltham Forest is situated in the northeast of London. We border several key areas of the capital, such as the Olympic site to our southeast, London's financial districts to the south, the Lower Lee Valley and the Thames Gateway to our south and west. We've one of the youngest and most diverse populations of London's 33 boroughs. 44% of our residents are from a minority ethnic background, that's non-white British, and about 15% of our households have at least one person with a disability. And we have the third highest Muslim population in the capital, that's about 15% of our residents. In addition to this, our resident base is changing really fast. We have one of the most transitory populations in the capital. The highest consistent levels of migration since 2006 have been from Pakistan, Poland, Lithuania and France, although the changes in the top 20 countries for inward migration since 2006 tell us that migration patterns are changing rapidly. So, for example, Ghana, Nigeria, South Africa, India, Czech Republic and the Soviet Republic all appear in the top 10 in 2006, but they're not even present in the top 2011, so that gives you an idea of how quickly things are changing here. In the early days, we established our first task group in response to the Iraq War in 2003, and this was tested by the events in London on the 7th of July 2005. Our very first strategy around cohesion focused on what we describe as hate crime, which is racist and homophobic attacks, and young people. And then came the events of 2006, and the world's media descended on our doorstep. On the 10th of August 2006, nearly half of those arrested for terrorist offences came from our borough, Waltham Forest. We experienced over 400 media inquiries in 5 days. We became the focus of world attention, and we were extremely concerned about the impact on our identity and the risk of tensions. As earlier in June 2006, a neighbouring borough of ours, Newham, had witnessed the shooting and wrongful arrest of suspected terrorists, and that had led to considerable community unrest there, so we were really concerned. And then really the police had previously been seen as the key agency in PREVENT. That PREVENT is the name of given by our government to all the work that prevents violent extremism, and I'll be referring to PREVENT all the way through my presentation. So as a local authority, we really had to up our game and began to develop new partnerships and work more closely with our police. We immediately launched intensive outreach into our community, faith institutions and with schools, and we commissioned the Institute of Community Cohesion, who took some baseline analysis for us on extremism and youth disengagement within Waltham Forest. Initially, I think we needed to assess the weaknesses in our existing strategy and approach to cohesion. We learnt very quickly that there were lots of areas that needed action, and the main challenges were actually in relation to us, the council. Our links into the Muslim community were limited. We had been, I think, a bit complacent, as although we had 12 Muslim councillors, they were all from the same mosque, and so that we weren't linked into the other 13 mosques in the borough. We had a strategy in place, but soon realised this wasn't really embedded, especially with our young people. I don't think we had an awareness of cohesion as a problem in our borough, and I think we'd assumed that as long as people were sort of rubbing along nicely, that all was well with the world. And the Institute of Community Cohesion quickly concluded that our voluntary and community sector, which are basically our NGOs, were weak and therefore not effective in supporting cohesion. And we really had to look again at our whole approach really to cohesion, especially as a key component of the PREVENT, which is preventing violent extremism. So our response, we needed cohesion to be seen as a priority at every level within the council, and that included the council leader, our executive councillors, the chief executive, our partners in schools, faith communities, and it was clear that no councillor or group of our councillors actually should be or could be expected to represent one section of the community. All our executive directors and service areas, we expected to see community cohesion as part of their core business, and really be much more proactive in kind of anticipating and trying to identify any tensions within our communities. And we soon realised that we didn't have a strong evidence base. We needed to do considerable mapping, analysis, evaluation and monitoring. But overall we were able to identify the 3 clear priorities that you can see. And in the next few slides, but with very little time, I'll pick out some of the key areas where I think we've made a difference, but we're really only able in this short presentation to give you a taste of the kind of work that we have done. In terms of understanding and responding to migration, we wanted to ensure that we had an evidence-based approach to delivering cohesion, and we weren't just relying on secondary research, data and figures, but actively engaging with our communities. And just a couple of examples, in 2008 we completed a piece of engagement work with our Polish, Lithuanian, South African communities, who were at the time our main sort of newly arrived communities that we knew little or really nothing about. And this learning from this engagement led us to undertake things like mapping and the delivery of English for speakers of other language, because we learned very quickly that access and quality of people learning English was actually impairing their ability as newcomers to use English and therefore access a range of services and engage with the wider community. We also did a wider kind of cohesion engagement in 2009, which really has enabled us to set a baseline for cohesion in the borough and just helped us to understand different communities' attitudes and perceptions of the area and of each other and our strengths and weaknesses, really. And then we undertook another survey in 2011 that we were able to make some comparisons. Building trust and promoting contact. We started undertaking a range of activities to start building more trust and contact between the different groups, as well as celebratory and awareness-raising events and interfaith activity. We focused very much on our work with young people. We developed our citizenship offer in schools, offering them support in delivering lessons on citizenship, and we initiated some other projects using our existing youth engagement mechanisms. One of the most high-profile and probably interesting projects that emerged from this was something called the I Muslim film, and this project was developed following an event for young people during our Islam Awareness Week in 2008, where their experience of the media in Britain was a strong and really hotly contested topic. And what happened was a group of young Muslims from the borough were trained to storyboard, film, edit and in parts animate a film that explores the portrayal of Muslims in mainstream media in Britain. And it was really successful in that the project enabled the young people to actually conduct interviews and discussion group sessions with really nationally renowned journalists, including Jon Snow and Krishnan Guru Murphy from our national Channel 4 News. They interviewed people like Penny Rout, who's the BBC London Communities editor, and also meet with story writers for some of our popular more soap series in Britain. So that's a sort of example of the sort of work we did there with young people. In terms of promoting active citizenship and engagement, we did lots in schools. We developed a joint schools council among a young Muslim leaders program, and we got young people really actively involved in the delivery of events such as Holocaust Memorial Day, as well as those linked to a wider cohesion agenda such as lesbian, gay, bisexual and transgender issues. We developed projects to bring more women into civic roles. We extended our participatory budgeting, which is basically something that allows people in their local neighbourhoods to prioritise funding for projects. And we initiated a review of our voluntary and community sector on the back of what we'd been told by the Institute of Community Cohesion, but I'll come on to a little bit more of that in a moment. And we also developed our corporate youth engagement work. We now have 3 groups who act as advisors for the council and our partners and deliver a range of initiatives. And some of this is things like improving the relationship between young people and the Metropolitan Police Service and improving access to services for young people. We wanted to make sure we included in this presentation some of the lessons we learned, and I'll try and keep this simple. I think for us, we learned that we have to understand the complexities of our communities and their experiences and the views of their views of life in the borough. And also a major learning point was the events in 2006 made it really clear to us that the success of PREVENT is dependent upon an effective approach to community cohesion, and in order to deliver this, the police and the council have to work together. I'll also be very honest, there's some challenges that we've really yet to fully overcome. So despite the new emphasis and approach to cohesion after 2006, the PREVENT agenda is still really problematic. So although we have this more comprehensive approach that acknowledges the relationship between PREVENT and cohesion, there is some ongoing negativity and scepticism about PREVENT, which has made that side of the agenda difficult to get the community to buy into. It's seen really as intelligence gathering and spying, and trust in authorities has declined in recent years, so it's an ongoing challenge for us. And I think it's also created some barriers to engagement, and it's led to some key individuals in our community becoming gatekeepers rather than acting as gateways. But we've learned, I think, there's no single voice for the Muslim community, and the divisions sometimes cause conflict and result in higher levels of tensions. And local authorities, we need to be respectful of those divisions and try to work on common goals. And we've also learned, I think, that cohesion and extremism doesn't really stop at local authority boundaries. You know, we're a world city, we're it's London, and we can't work in silos within boroughs to achieve results. I'm just going to talk very quickly about the challenges going forward. I'm sure you're all familiar with the phrase coined by James Carville, Bill Clinton's political strategist in the 1992 election. It's the economy stupid. And the economy has long been considered a fundamental driver of public policy and political opinion. And we know economics have tested cohesion in the past. In Britain, the riots in the north of England in 2001 really brought to the fore community tensions, and the riots in the 1980s in England were also events which saw economic deprivation affecting race relations. We're concerned because, unlike the recession in 2008, the current economic crisis also includes really savage and unprecedented cuts to public services in England, and these cuts look set to continue. And Waltham Forest has already taken a hit of rigidly losing 25% of our funding, which is really significant. And of course, perceptions of fairness in the allocation of resources and services are likely to be more of an issue. And all of this has come at a time when all of the grant that we had from central government for cohesion work has been completely cut, and now they're only funding and focusing on prevent. So the complete separation of cohesion and prevent work at central government level will bring about its own challenges in the next few years, because we know on the ground that prevent work won't actually have an impact if there isn't cohesion activity that supports that. And we're facing a whole range of cohesion issues, including gangs and the issues of far-right activity in the east of London. So very quickly, final slide, new approaches. It's very early days, and we're really up against it in terms of the budget cuts and the sort of potential threats to cohesion. So we're having to be very creative in the use of our remaining resources. We see our voluntary and community sector, again, our NGOs, as a key player in some of the challenges we face. We're putting in place a new strategy to strengthen the sector and to try and make more local voluntary and community organisations resilient against future public sector cuts, because they've taken a hit as well in terms of their funding. We're strengthening the sector. We're investing on good ongoing engagement, and really enabling the community to continue to promote contact and develop trust. So, for example, our interfaith work is continuing, and that's also helping to support our work on tackling gangs. Some of our new migrant communities aren't particularly hard to reach, but they are disengaged, and so we need to ensure that we're understanding their issues whilst encouraging communities to really self-support and find solutions. I'll just quickly bury two examples of that. Our local lesbian, gay, bisexual and transgender community organisation, we feel they're best placed to reach and support LGBT refugees, identify their needs, ensure they're accessing services, and so we're funding them to enable them to do that. Members of one of our youth engagement groups, they're already trained in training our young offenders in conflict resolution, and so some of these young people are now being recruited to be trained as gang mediators. So that's sort of some of the examples of the sort of work we've done, and I've really run out of time, so I'm going to stop now. Thank you.
Well, I'd like to thank you, Claire, for sharing those invaluable lessons with us on how Waltham Forest's evidence-based approach has guided the Council and its work on cohesion issues over the last 15 years. Very interesting. There have been many important lessons put before us by three tremendous presentations this morning. We believe that that these all good ideas have potential to travel, to influence everyone in the room. So I'd like to point out that we now have a poll on the screen that asks you to let us know whether any of the ideas you've heard about today are ideas that you could imagine adapted in your own city. You can vote on the poll at any time during the session, and we do encourage you to do so. Well, we've now concluded the formal presentation to the question and answer period. I'm going to introduce the session with a couple of questions. And before I do so, I'd like to take a moment to introduce a new voice we have joining us for the Q&A from Waltham Forest City Council. Councillor Likat Ali. Councillor Ali is currently Cabinet Member for Community Safety and Cohesion and has served in a variety of capacities over the years, including as Mayor of Waltham Forest in 2007 and 8. Councillor Ali will also be taking some of the questions this morning about city leadership in Waltham Forest. So I think we should go straight. I notice that we've got a lot of questions coming in, so we're going to have to rush through them. I'm going to start the session by asking a very simple question. I'm looking for a very short, simple answer from Claire and from Lean in Antwerp. I'd like to know, how do you define social inclusion in your cities? Perhaps we could start with you, Claire.
Well, for Waltham Forest, I think really for us it's about creating a fairer society, and as a local authority that means how we can deliver good public services in times of economic constraints, ensure value for money, and target resources on areas where it can make most difference. It's about treating people as individuals, focusing on our accountability and transparency and getting the results that matter. But I suppose if we said what was the definition of social inclusion, for us it would be people from different backgrounds that having similar life opportunities, people know their rights and responsibilities, and that people can really trust one another and trust us as a local institution to act fairly.
Very good. And from Antwerp, Lean,
I think
social inclusion?
Yes, I think what is important here is the result of a broader social inclusion is that we have a broader and a bigger participation of the minorities in our city life, but also in the decision-making policy.
Very good. The next question we'll ask is core to sort of this municipal agenda that we've taken on at Cities of Migration in this program year. I mean, how does a city council create greater community cohesion? What can you as local authorities do that other stakeholders can't do? And let's go to Claire.
It's an interesting one. I suppose for us, as a local borough, our elected members are the most grassroots sort of level of local democratic accountability, and so they're seen as local leaders not only for communities but also by other public agencies, and I suppose this gives us as a council a kind of mandate to act on these issues. We've been given more of a local leadership role by central government, and I think we're expected to coordinate activity that ensures social, economic and environmental well-being of residents. So we also have that ongoing relationship with our communities through our council and their leadership of engagement with residents and local people. And at the end of the day, we still have considerable resources and capacity and assets at our disposal.
And how about you? And for you, Lean?
Yes, I completely agree with Claire, but I just want to add that what is very important, of course, as a local politician, you are the one who has to take the decisions, but you can take better decisions if you invest first in communities, and afterwards, if you listen to the different communities, to the different minorities, because then your decision will be better, will have a bigger, will be taking, sorry, I just was looking for the words, but the more you discussed on forehand the decisions you will take, and the better they are underbuilt by the not only sorry, I hear myself talking twice, so that's not so good. But what I want to say is, when you take decisions, but first you listen to the more what ethnic minorities has to say, you can take better decisions, but also you can let them carry away with your decisions, so that you can have a better translation of why you do certain things.
Very good. I think the next question, we would like to invite Councillor Ali to to. Making cohesion a priority at every level within Waltham Forest City Council and amongst your community partners appears to have been central to your success in delivering cohesion work in the city. I'd like to ask you how you're going to maintain this buy-in for cohesion going forward, especially with so many challenges facing local government leadership in this period of economic cuts. How is this going to affect your approach? Will it change your approach to cohesion?
Yeah, thank you, and that question. And really, firstly, my role as the cabinet member responsible for cohesion, I really have to work with all my cabinet colleagues to ensure that they are giving this area high priority and consideration in their service areas. And we are working hard to protect frontline services, and as a local authority we are committed to protecting our most vulnerable residents. When it comes to reductions in services are being made, the cohesion implication of this have to be considered, and I have to make sure that my cabinet colleagues are communicating this effectively to our communities and addressing the impact of cohesion, and assessments are made on the impact of any changes to services. And as cabinet member of cohesion, I can also ensure that I'm raising this issue with senior officers in partner organizations and with our voluntary community sector partners, because they play a big role, to ensure that they understand the risks that we complacent. I can also use my influence to ensure that we have the right people around the table when we are planning our approach to cohesion, and that we use council-wide resources creatively and in the best way to achieve cohesion outcomes. Really fundamentally, our approach to cohesion won't change. We'll just need to be more creative in how we use existing council resources, deliver the three priorities as outlined by Claire's presentation. We will certainly, however, need to be mindful of issues around of fairness, strong and cohesive communities to make this less of an issue. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Ali. We're now going to start taking questions from our audience. I have a question for Claire from a member of the audience who asks, I would like to know in how far you think the kind of social cohesion work you do at the local level is positioned vis-a-vis discourses on social cohesion at the national level. Is it consistent with it, or are there contradictions, adaptions, etc.?
Sorry, I couldn't hear that very well, Kim. Sorry, could you just repeat that question?
It should be on your screen now. The question was whether how consistent your own approach to social cohesion was with national approach to social cohesion, and to comment, I think, on how it may differ.
I think when in the previous government, there was a kind of shared approach around cohesion, and I think the councils, obviously what we delivered locally was very bespoke, it was very tailored to the particular circumstances of Waltham Forest, but in terms of government policy, I think it reflected that. Our challenge now is that there is a separation of cohesion from Prevent at national government level, with only Prevent being funded. And at a local level that presents us with a bit of a challenge, because as I said in my presentation, our learning really is that we can't deliver Prevent in isolation from our cohesion work. And at the moment our central government doesn't have or hasn't issued around cohesion, or what they're calling integration. So previously, yes, it was a kind of a harmonious working, although government always said we had to do what worked for us locally.
but there was a broad policy support for that. It's much more challenging now, I think, with the separation of the preventing violent extremism agenda from the wider cohesion and integration agenda.
Thank you very much. Now that question was brought to you from Iran Fremantle from the ACMS in South Africa. Our next, would you like to comment on that question as well, Aline? Are your policies, how do they compare to the national position on social cohesion?
I think because we have a lot more people from a different background, that of course Antwerp is a little bit in front of other cities in Belgium. But what is more important is that I think there, Naima, because she's also working in Brussels, she can better look at the differences between Antwerp and a Brussels level. So I suggest you ask it at Naima.
Naima, would you like to comment?
Well, it's a bit difficult because my impression is that on the national level, the discourses on social cohesion are mostly transferred to the local level. So they stress the importance of the local level, and they provide some actors to be able to work on it. But it is difficult to see really compare the local to the national level, I think, in this, because the discourses are very general, let's say, and there's also difference on the discourses on social cohesion, let's say, and the general discourses that we have on integration, etc. So for me, I find it a very difficult question.
Yeah, but in fact, you just point out, I think, what is important. It's at the national level, it's more talking over people, and I think because we live together in Antwerp, we all live together, we are forced to talk with each other, and sometimes about very delicate subjects, but also about very concrete projects. Because when I saw here the question that Krista was asking, and it's about how do young people in Antwerp concretely engage in civic discourse. And I think I can give a very good example. We have fund in Antwerp a media agency for youngsters, but by funding it, and it was from the vice major who was responsible for youngsters, what we did there is we funded, but we say you have to have a lot of people who come from not only a different ethnic background, but also we come from another social background. So it's not only for the high class, but really for all youngsters in Antwerp. And we see it's now active for, let's say, 5 years. And we see now that the topics are changing. And why are they changing? Because the reporters are youngsters from who live in Antwerp, so are youngsters from different ethnic backgrounds. And I think that's how you can change. And I follow Naima. You can only make change by giving a right to speak, but also giving the possibility to let them hear their voice. And youngsters in Antwerp, that's not one homogeneous group, but it are all little groups from different ethnic backgrounds, and but they are all young. So we appeal them on their as youngsters. But we see, and that you can do from a local authority. We fund them, but only if they implement all youngsters from Antwerp, so also people from different ethnic backgrounds, and that is so important that we fund also organizations from ethnic minorities, but we fund them to make them, let them hear themselves, but also to take part in our society.
Thank you very much. Now I have a question here from London, from Clara Schmidt, who asks for both speakers how you evaluate the impact of your work and how you obtain feedback from the communities that you work with. Perhaps you could start with that one, Claire.
Sorry, we can't see. Can you just repeat the question because we can't see?
Yeah, we're having some technical difficulties on screen, so I apologize for that. The question was how you evaluate the impact of your work and how you receive feedback from your stakeholders, from communities.
Right. Well, we obviously undertake evaluations for all of the projects work that we do, but I think for us the real key thing in terms of its impact and evaluation in Waltham Forest is our cohesion engagement work. In the presentation, we did the survey in 2009 and 2000, and then we did the other one in 2008 and then 2010-11, and that's really the acid test for us in terms of is our work having an impact in the wider community, and that's the way that we test in terms of people's attitudes, perceptions of each other, the area where they live, and kind of where we test our resilience and our community cohesion. So whilst we do test individual projects, the important thing for us is that it's having a kind of wider impact on cohesion in the borough, and that is tested through the kind of survey and engagement work we do.
Very good. We just have time for one more question. This has come in actually from a number of our audience members today. The question was, how does the city, with its new and long-standing immigrant communities, ensure that the myriad needs of different groups are incorporated into its plans? And specifically, how do you respond to the accusation, the challenge that these strategies might neglect older or long-standing or indigenous members of the community? How do you remain truly inclusive? And again, let's take that question to Claire.
I think I suppose one of the starting points for this is that all needs are not going to be met that exist across all our communities. We've never had a public big enough for that, and I think that's quite an important message. Even before the cut, there's no way we could meet everybody's needs. For us, it's about having a really strong evidence-based decision-making, and that has to include an understanding of the different groups and how their needs might be met. And this, obviously, as part of that evidence base, has to evidence how we're meeting the needs of older, longer-standing members of communities. We've got a really long history of diversity in Waltham Forest, and these considerations are pretty much mainstream. So we don't really have separate strategies very often anymore for particular groups. But what we do make sure is all our strategies are quality assessed to ensure that they're meeting people's needs fairly, given the levels of resources we have, and that no one is being unduly discriminated against. Just as an example of that, someone asked me recently how we ensure that we're recruiting Black, Asian and minority ethnic people to our youth engagement groups, and my response is simply we don't have to. We are such a diverse borough and are inclusive. All we have to do is advertise, and through that these young people inform a whole range of services to young people, such as sexual health services, and just this in itself helps us to ensure that these services are meeting the range of needs. That's my answer.
That's great. And for you, Lena, in Antwerp, how are you managing that? The suggestion that a cohesion strategy sometimes leaves out older residents of the city or more historical communities there.
I think what we try to do, and what we are rather successful in, is when you the older citizens, we do a lot of things for them. Only the people who do that for them become more and more colored. What I want to say is, for instance, in elderly homes, we have a lot of people from different ethnic minority who work for them, who help them, and we see that there the gap is closed. So it's not, and you can broaden that, because what we are doing is not changing that much, but the way and the people who are involved, that is important. And the more you can involve groups from different ethnic minorities in your policy, the better it is for the whole of your city.
Very good. Well, we're really now at the end of the question and answer period. We have a few more questions. We may try to get those online for you later because we need to come to a close. But I'd like, before thanking everyone, and I would like to ask a couple of final questions to each of you, very short questions. I'd like to ask each of you whether the work you're doing, whether the good idea at Waltham Forest and the good idea at Antwerp has traveled for cities being influenced by your work. Well, Claire?
Yes, I think we're always, I think, around. I mean, I work very much as if it's all come from within the borough. When we developed all our plans around cohesion, we were looking at being a beacon borough for cohesion. We were always looking elsewhere. So I think this is I've had a lot of learning today. This is really very useful.
And if you had to say it literally in one or two words, what is the one most important secret to your success?
One most important secret to our success, I think it is what we've said, is around community engagement. Really, it's really trying to have a good, ongoing, open and transparent relationship with your community about the key issues around cohesion.
Final question for you is, and you know, what's the next big idea at Waltham Forest? What's your next big step forward on this agenda?
I suppose we're kind of there at the moment a little bit in terms of testing some of the things that we've put in place that we've had to really as a result of the budget cuts. And the next big step is to test really whether they're actually being effective. And the challenge will be mostly around the prevent agenda, that we're able to use our available resources and that we're actually deploying our resources in the right way around cohesion to make sure that we're delivering the wider cohesion agenda but also supporting the prevent agenda.
Well, thank you very much. Now I'm going to turn back to Antwerp. This time I'm going to address my question to Lena. Now we know that the Minderhedenforum, and hello to that little person, we know that the Minderhedenforum has been successful, that it's traveled, and that it is now well installed in Antwerp. The question that I'd like to ask you, Lena, is what is the one most important secret to your success?
Oh, I think it's not a secret, but it's the fact that we share the feeling that we are living together in this little piece of Belgium, little place that's called Antwerp, and I think it's not. Really, it's not my success, not at all. So, because as a politician, you can only want to do one thing, and it's want to improve to do better than you do today, and you only can do that in collaboration with stakeholders, in collaboration with partners, and the stronger you can make those partners, the better you can have a better life in the city. So I think what we tried those last years is to make people from other ethnic minority groups, make them stronger, or not make them stronger, but because that they do themselves, but to give them some opportunities that it's more easy for them to build up their own life, but also to give them by funds also the opportunity to fill in the needs they see for themselves.
Very good. And Naima, for you, what is the next big step for you at Minderhedenforum?
Well, I think the things we try to do, we will still have some years to really see a long-term impact. But what is really important is this ownership by minorities themselves or ourselves, this active participation, the idea that it is not enough that others reach out to minorities or try to create participation, but the trust that we have now to organize ourselves, to empower ourselves, and not to be empowered, so to say, by others. And that is what we do, but I think we will be looking for the next 10 years for new and better methods to do it better, because the challenge to reach our goals is very big.
Very good. Well, thank you very much. Our time has run out. We will send all unanswered questions to our presenters and get those back to you. On behalf of all of our participants today, I'd like to thank Leen Verbeest in Antwerp, Naima Charquet in Brussels, and Claire Whitney and Councillor Ali in Waltham Forest, London. I'd like you all to imagine this excellent work being interpreted in your city, being adopted by your organization, and changing your local neighborhood.